This evening, let's explore how to prevent creepy meditation experiences. We'll begin with mindfulness. Every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within our spinal cord. It has evolved not for active concentration, but rather to merely perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. One of the many things we can perceive are sensations. We evolved the capacity initially to perceive sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, and then eventually to perceive emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. In the overall context, we can perceive the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. There are many people who traipse about proclaiming that we can choose our experience. Please don't. We evolved the capacity to notice the good, the bad, and the ugly as a survival mechanism. Imagine, if you will, many millennia ago, when our ancestors were first venturing across the plains of the Serengeti. And imagine, too, one is completely vulnerable to the present moment, to the sights and sounds and sensations and flavors and scents. And he's just really just noticing and responding to what he's perceiving. Another one's like, la la la, I'm creating my adventure. Guess which one is going to wind up lunch? Yeah, the one who wasn't allowing his central nervous system to alert him of things. There is nothing wise or spiritual or useful about ignoring our sensory apparatus. In fact, the Buddha, who legend tells us knows a thing or two about meditation, taught that there were 7 enlightenment factors, and that the first one was mindfulness. No mindfulness, no enlightenment. So we have to be perceptive. It's not our job to tell ourselves what to notice or tell ourselves what to feel. It's our job to notice what's going on. And so I've said all that to say this. Good old Vince Lombardi, many decades ago, proclaimed that fatigue makes cowards of us all. When our body sends us signals that we've had enough of any event, we ignore its signals at our peril, either our physical peril or our psychological peril. Our body is not capricious. It is evolved to keep us alive and to keep us healthy. And so when we get signals that what we're doing, anything, whether it's making love or watching a movie or working out or meditating, whatever you're doing, once your body's saying, no, I think that's enough, the wise person will listen to their body. And in time, the more we honor our body and listen to it, the more our capacity to work out more, or watch TV more, or meditate more, or make love more will increase. But if we ignore our body's signals, we will get some sort of an injury, coarse or subtle, internal or external, physical or mental. So we will harm ourselves. An individual on Reddit explained that after meditating for 5 or 6 hours, he began having creepy experiences. Yeah. We have to listen to our body, or our brain is not going to work right, and our body is not going to work right. So let's continue. Fatigue. It is typically in our best interest to have a modicum of poise. There are certain survival and circumstances where where fear can get us out of peril. And that's great because our survival mechanisms are for just that. Once we get fatigued, our central nervous system's ability to perceive clearly and judge accurately is impaired. Our ability to tell the difference between perception and imagination, perception and recollection, perception and both imagination and perception running concurrently, that's called a confabulation, gets blurred. So if we ignore our body's signals to stop what we're doing, including meditation, and we go beyond that point, we're not going to become Supermen, we're going to become super gimps, metaphorically speaking. And of course, I'm disabled, so I'm not trying to be ableist. I got to reach for something. Please bear with me. Okay, here we go. If you lie down on your belly or your back to meditate, you will most likely fall asleep. And before you fall asleep, you will enter a hypnagogic state, which isn't quite asleep and isn't quite awake and is a wonderful, what's it called? Opportunity for all kinds of dreams and hallucinations to mix and to undermine perception. To prevent that from happening, in addition to listening to our body, sit in a sustainable posture. Notice that in the earliest Buddha statues, the Buddha was not depicted as sitting in the full lotus. He was depicted with his legs parallel, stacked upon each other, turning out not from the knees, but from the hips. Sitting as if there was traction between his head and his pelvis. This is not only physically sustainable, but it creates more neurological, I want to say empowerment, that's not the best term. Resourcefulness, that's a better term. So, once again, don't lay in meditation for 5 to 6 hours and expect to have a super positive experience. It's better to start off practicing once every 12 hours. And to start off the first week, maybe practicing, the Buddha taught 12 meditations and 4 contemplations. And we do them each, 16 to 32 reps each. That's going to be approximately 3.5 to 5 minutes. So you start off the first week with one exercise for about 3.5 to 5 minutes every 12 hours. The second week, you add on the second. So it's the first, and then it's the second for a total of, somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes. And so let's just round up because 5 is an easier number to work with. So the first week you work with, one exercise every 12 hours. The second week, 2 exercises every 12 hours. The third week, 3 exercises every 12 hours. By the end of the 16th week, you will have acclimated your body and mind to doing all 16 exercises every 12 hours. If you have the good fortune to be able to practice more than once every 12 hours, like you have a vacation, that's great. Then you may want to practice, for instance, 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m. So that's 4 times in a 24-hour period, giving yourself approximately 10 hours between your last meditation on one day and your first meditation the other day. 4 is a great number. It gives you a chance to recover. Any athlete will tell you, you need your body to recover. Any creative will tell you, you need to give your mind a chance to recover. Any person who relies on the analytical practices of the mind knows you have to give your mind time to rest. This is super important. Any athlete, any good athletic trainer will tell you that it's not just the time you spend in the gym, it's the time you spend out of the gym resting and hopefully eating healthy food. Similarly, we have to give our body and mind chance to recover. That's how we set ourselves up for success. Because after all, we're not on some machismo quest. We're not trying to induce schizophrenia. We're trying to increase peace, contentment, wisdom, joy, and love. And so like a gardener, we have to have a solid strategy. This evening, I would have very much liked to practice the 12 meditations and 4 contemplations with you. After, we tend to about 1 to 1.5 minutes of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you who support this channel on Patreon. If you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as General Leia Organa on Ajan Kloss under the guidance of Luke Skywalker, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news. If at any point during this evening's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. And now, as promised, it's time for this evening's practice. We're working with a practice text, or sadhana if you're fancy, titled Secular Mindfulness, Meditation, and Contemplation, which is my adaptation of the Anapanasati Sutta. Now, I didn't make an adaptation because I'm trying to be, ooh, look at me, I'm special. I'm too lazy for that. I made an adaptation because most translations are kind of ungainly, and my first priority with this adaptation is not to make something that will give me a pat on the back from fundamentalists or scholars. The only two things that I'm concerned about is, number one, I'm adapting this in such a way that really supports my practice, because I have a shit ton of disabilities, including central nervous system disorders. So this body of mine is my own personal bullshit detector. And the test of the teachings for me is what works. My second reason is so that when people have the ambition to learn meditation and get good at it, that I'm able to set them up for success. Easy, quick success. When you watch the Olympics, every sprint begins with a starter's pistol and ends with a finish line. And what I've found is that after years of teaching, that people like a sense of structure, and people just kind of feel comfortable with it. So I tend to begin and end every meditation session with a very brief, non-superstition chant that's designed to exercise our neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm and insight. Let's start right now. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Add the 12 meditations to the 4 contemplations, and you have 16 exercises, which divide evenly into 4 sets of 4. We begin with Kaya Sati's only set of 4 preliminary meditations that center our bodies. We come to the first of centering's 4 physical preliminary practices where we mindfully notice and even investigate our relaxingly longer, gentle exhalations. So let's see if we can't play with this for a minute here. Okay, so how long breath? Now, when we say investigate, investigate is just a fancy way of saying the opposite of being defensive. When things come up that we don't like, physically or mentally, it's not our job to shove them away, pretend they're not there. It's our job to notice with great vulnerability as we breathe in and do our best to physically relax and mentally release as we breathe out to facilitate this. As we breathe in, let's silently and mentally recite how. As we exhale, let's silently and mentally recite long breath. And let's remember that this question is rhetorical. Let's jump right in. So the mindfulness and investigation are the first and second enlightenment factors, where relaxing is the fifth enlightenment factor. We come to the second of Centering's four physical preliminary practices where we mindfully notice and even investigate the coalescence of our invigoratingly sharper inhalations. So coalescence, which occurs during our inhalation, is the sixth enlightenment factor. And invigorating is the third enlightenment factor, also known as energy. So, poke like a bunny. How short breath? So it's the same number of syllables, the same ratio, but this time we're being a little bit more aware of our in-breath. We're going to shift gears now, and for all the remaining exercises, they're all going to be one-syllable words. We come to the third of centering. We come to the third of centering's 4 physical preliminary practices, where we mindfully notice and even investigate our body. So we're shifting from just our respiratory system to the entirety of our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. As we breathe in, we're going to silently and mentally recite the sensory verb feel. And as we exhale, we're going to silently and mentally recite the noun form, which functions as a synonym for body. Now we come to the fourth of centering's 4 physical preliminary practices, where we don't force, but we allow our bodies to tranquilly relax. Remember, tranquility is the 5th enlightenment factors. So as we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun form. Remember, every time we breathe in, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to perceive. So noticing our form when we breathe in is totally natural. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the word calm. Now this is not an adjective. We're not trying to make an affirmation and lie to ourselves about what we're feeling. We're using a verb, calm, so we are we're guiding our intention with the cunning use of words. Now remember, every time we exhale, we inadvertently access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is already wired for mental release during physical relaxation. So calming is a natural function of our exhalation. So we're not making it happen. We're just aligning our intention with the wiring, the circuitry of our autonomic nervous system, and getting out of our own way. We continue with Vedana Sati's set of 4 jhana meditations that center our feelings. Let's begin with the first of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the first jhana's blissful joy that flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. And of course, we're grinning towards our bodies, of flesh, blood, and bone. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun form. By the way, joy is the 4th enlightenment factor. So grinning like a goofball at your own body is perfectly in harmony with the Buddha's instructions. And now you know why so many of the better Buddhist statues contain a subtle smile. Or I should say depict a subtle smile. We come to the second of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices where we savor the second jhana's peaceful joy that flows from gently grinning, once again, with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes, towards our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. And clearly, we're using the term thought as an umbrella term. Again, as we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. This time, as we exhale, we're silently and mentally reciting the word thoughts. So this is the complete opposite of us living in opposition to our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. This is us making friends with them. We come to the third of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the third jhana's contentment by mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the sensory verb feel, and as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the word thoughts. We come to the fourth of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the fourth jhana's neutrality by allowing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining to tranquilly relax. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun thoughts. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb calm. We continue with Chittasati's second set of 4 jhana meditations that center our mind. The first set of 4 jhana meditations centered our feelings. The second set of jhana meditations center our minds. Jhanas are kind of like levels. We continue with the first of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 5th jhana sphere of infinite spaciousness. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our mind's ability to see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and the like. And just like the word thoughts, we're using the word minds as an umbrella term. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the sensory verb feel. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind. We continue with the second of 4 mind-oriented centering exercises, where we savor the 6th jhana sphere of infinite awareness, which we generate by allowing our mind to gladden. As towards it we gently smile, once again from the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind, which of course functions as an umbrella term. We come to the third of 4 mind-oriented centering practices where we savor the 7th jhana sphere of non-graspability as we allow our minds seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like to tranquilly relax in the most sustainable way. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind, and as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb calm. We come to the 4th of 4 mind-oriented centering practices where we savor the 8th jhana sphere of acquiescent non-labeling by experiencing the liberating equanimity, which is the 7th enlightenment factor, of our controlling tendencies to shove and to reach. To push and to pull. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun, mind, and as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb, free. We end with Dhammasati, also known as Anika Vipassana, set of 4 impermanence contemplations to help us circumstantially let go. Beginning with the first of 4 contemplations, where we consider course impermanence with the first of 4 rhetorical questions. What change? Now, our job is not to actively answer this rhetorical question. If all we do is silently and mentally recite these words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, we will make progress. We come to the second of four contemplations where we consider subtle impermanence with the words what? Fade. We come to the third of four contemplations where we consider very subtle impermanence with the words what? Cease. We come to the fourth of four contemplations, where we consider relinquishing, surrendering, and letting go. How? Yield. Let's seal our practice with wishing love. May everyone be free from misery. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 10 2/3 hours, I intend to return to lead tomorrow's early morning lesson and meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.